Look, there are just some words that should never be used to describe human anatomy. Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. This time I am reviewing Sabrine by M.J. River. This is an erotica all about two friends going on a road trip when things start to get physical between them. I was interested in this not because of who the author is, but because of who the author isn't. In the email to me, he explained that he is, quote, not a woman and not bisexual, but he did use bisexual female beta readers. Now, I don't know his exact identity. Twitter tells me he goes by he, him pronouns, but I don't know what necessarily he is identity-wise, so I'm not going to assume anything. But after so much talk going around about women writing MLM romances, I was like, well, we got to do the reverse, you know? Not woman writing an FF or WLW romance. And so I was intrigued by that. Also, he is poly, and it's a pen name. I'm not outing anybody. And he explained that this was one of his first forays into it. And that right away intrigued me more than anything, because as someone who has had to write and is currently in the middle of waiting for the short story collection to come out, a sex scene, I can definitely tell you it's awkward to try and manage. And I have read a ton of erotica, and I knew a lot of like the traditional like stereotypes and stuff, and a lot of the expectations people have going into erotica. So I was interested to see what the author would have right out of the gate, and unfortunately it was very awkward. Now, writing out a sex scene in a story is inherently kind of silly, because you are trying to write out in words what is inherently a physical action, and there's just a certain level of poetry you have to maintain to make it not weird. And we've talked about this before. There's been all the debates over how should you describe genitals. Do we want the whole like wet heat? I'm not a fan of that terminology, or member, or all of those kind of things. But this was the first erotica I've read, and I have been reading it for years, that uses words like snatch, muff, loins, and posterior in the middle of the sex scenes. Now, those words do culturally have connotations of that nether region. Never want to see them in the middle of a sex scene ever again, because it took me out every time. It's supposed to be this, you know, sexual awakening of our protagonist realizing she has physical feelings for a woman, and I was literally laughing because aroused snatch is just something I can't not laugh at. So that kind of language definitely needed some work. There were also some issues about like the language around it. It definitely had, and I think this is more of a general modern problem with a lot of books, it was trying to be so much not poetic that it ended up being really dry, and there were certain moments that the technical side of the writing got iffy, like sentences would say things like she was giving instead of she gave, and it was written in a very passive voice, and it was just, there was a lot of parts that were awkward. On top of that, I didn't understand next to anything about the characters that wasn't directly related to sex. I don't even know how the characters became friends, why they decided to go on this road trip, why they're on the road trip. And I think to a certain extent there's this kind of assumption in media that like a random road trip is fun. No, I am neurospicy. Just going off without a plan, that is my nightmare. You need to explain to me why this was fun. Is this something that's just in their natures to want to be this spontaneous? Do they come from a large amount of money that they can afford to do this? And I realized that's probably asking for too much from a 60-page erotic short story. But also there were certain moments where things like the developing feelings, because on top of it being physical, Sabrine also begins to develop feelings for Jenny, but I don't know anything about their dynamic. Why are they friends? What's the interplay between them before this? Was one of them the serious one and one of them the silly one? Like, what's their general interaction style with each other that would lead to this. It just starts physical, and it's kind of just assumed that it's going to turn more than that, which was weird because that wasn't given any airtime. Like the actual like deepening of the relationship that was the crux of the story wasn't given any airtime, but there was entire sentences dedicated to the exact different flavors of wine and how it got that way. So, like, you didn't get the crux of the story explained in a believable way, but you got a lot of descriptions of wine. And that, like, the minutia could be fun to someone that likes wine or has an interest in it. I don't drink, so I forgot basically everything it was supposed to teach you right after it happened. It just moved on. The book also has, like, a warning, something about how the author recognizes that this is not a healthy relationship or something. I'm not sure what that warning is for. Usually I'm all for content warnings, like 100%. Nothing in this story, to me, seemed like it needed that kind of the author knows this relationship isn't healthy aspect. I mean, there is a sex worker involved in the story at one point. There's sex with a stranger, but, like, they use protection. They don't promise anything. The sex isn't gained through deceit. Like, the relationship between the two women seems fairly healthy. I have no idea what that warning is for, and I'm usually, like, hyper vigilant about that kind of thing. So this is the first time where I looked at the warning and I don't know why it was there, which is not usual for me. But the other thing to note, and I'm not saying anything about the author's identity. I don't know exactly what it is, aside from not a woman, not bisexual, he, him pronouns. There was just something about the way the female characters were written in regards to orgasm that did not ring true for female anatomy at all. At some point, Sabrine is thinking to herself, like, she's on the verge of finishing, and she's like, oh, no, I can't do it yet. Like, she has to hold back. That's not a thing women are worried about. The whole, oh no, I have to hold back so this lasts longer. That's not a thing female anatomy cares about. It's kind of one of the best parts about female anatomy is you can have one orgasm and then go right into another one. Like, it's kind of the best part. It's the males, like, and I know someone's gonna be like, gendered description. I don't know how else to, like, the people who have the innies can have multiple orgasms, the people with the outies can't. That's that. And in general, there was another time later on where she was, like, shocked that she could have multiple orgasms close together. And again, cis women don't think that. That's not a thing cis women are worried about. So it was just very strange. And I still did see some potential here, mostly in everything not revolving around sex scenes, because there were moments like when it got into the minutia of the wine, it seemed like the author was really into that and knew what he was talking about. And there were certain moments when Sabrine was allowed to get poetic, it was very pretty. And, I remember there was like a something to the effect of her rosy red lips were made to be kissed, or rosy red cheeks were made to be kissed, something like that. And I was like, that's really cute. And I'm like, I almost want to see this author try something that's not erotica, go for a fade to black romance, try that first, and then add in the sex scenes. And again, I can't really hate on anyone too much because I know for a fact from experience that sex scenes are very difficult to write. And I know that not everyone who hasn't read extensively in erotica might not know the effects of certain language or the expectations that readers will have for certain things in their erotica. So I gave the book 2 stars. There is potential. There is a chance for the author to improve moving forward, but that language has got to be altered. There's got to be way more depth put in to the relationship, or just accepted as erotica without romantic feelings. That's valid. I've seen that from authors before. And moving forward, focusing more on, I can't believe I'm saying this, focusing more on the aspects outside of the bedroom, and developing those so that the inside the bedroom scenes mean more. Now, if you're an indie author and you're interested in a review something like this one, you can contact me. I will have all of that information down in the description below. Please be sure to read through my review policy. It answers a lot of questions and saves us a lot of time. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.